Welcome to Future Epoch, where we learn more about our world. Imagine waking up one morning and finding that your money still exists, but it now comes with conditions. It can be spent at certain stores but not others. It expires if not used within a set time frame. It can be frozen, redirected, or cancelled by the institution that issued it, without a court order and without appeal. This is not a dystopian thought experiment. It is a description of the technical capabilities built into some of the digital currency systems currently under development by governments around the world. More than 130 countries, representing over 98% of global GDP, are now exploring or actively developing a central bank digital currency. Some have already launched. Others are years into testing. And a small number appear to be motivated not just by financial modernization, but by the prospect of unprecedented economic control over their own citizens and over each other. Money has always been a political instrument. The decision to issue it, control it, and determine who has access to it has shaped the rise and fall of empires, the outcomes of wars, and the daily lives of billions of people. What is changing now is not the politics of money, but the technical architecture of money itself. A central bank digital currency, or CBDC, is a digital form of a country's official currency, issued directly by the central bank. It is not a cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. It is not a stablecoin issued by a private company. It is sovereign money in digital form, with the full backing and authority of a national government. The distinction matters enormously. The digital money that currently sits in your bank account is actually a liability of a commercial bank, not the central bank directly. A CBDC cuts out that intermediary. It is, in effect, a direct digital relationship between you and the state. That shift sounds technical, but its implications reach far beyond banking infrastructure. They touch on privacy, surveillance, geopolitical power, and the future of the international financial order. The story of digital currencies does not begin with a technical breakthrough. It begins with a political one. In 2014, the People's Bank of China quietly began researching what it called digital fiat currency. The motivations were practical at first: reduce the cost of printing and distributing physical cash, improve financial inclusion in rural areas, and gain better real-time visibility into the flow of money through the economy. By 2009, the project had a name, the Digital Yuan, or ECNY, and a dedicated state research institute behind it. What accelerated the global race was not China's quiet progress, but a very public announcement from Silicon Valley. In June 2019, Facebook revealed plans for a digital currency called Libra, later renamed Diem, backed by a basket of currencies and intended for use by the platform's billions of users worldwide. The announcement triggered immediate alarm in central banks and finance ministries across the world. If a private platform could issue a de facto global currency, what would that mean for monetary sovereignty? The response was swift. Central banks that had been observing developments from a cautious distance suddenly moved to the front of the room. Research programs were launched or accelerated in the European Union, the United Kingdom, the United States, Japan, India, and dozens of smaller economies. The first country to actually deploy a retail CBDC for public use was not a major power. In October 2020, the Bahamas became the first nation in the world to issue a fully operational central bank digital currency, the sand dollar. Nigeria followed in October 2021 with the Naira. The Eastern Caribbean Central Bank launched Dcash the same year. In February 2022, China used the Beijing Winter Olympics as a showcase for the digital yuan, making it available to international visitors and domestic consumers across hundreds of participating merchants in a live public environment. That trial represented the largest real-world test of a central bank digital currency in history. By 2023, the Bank for International Settlements reported that 9 out of 10 central banks globally were engaged in some form of CBDC, research, development, or pilot program. The technical competition over digital currencies has become inseparable from a larger geopolitical contest over financial power. For decades, the United States dollar has occupied a position of extraordinary privilege at the center of the global financial system. Most international trade is priced in dollars, most foreign exchange reserves are held in dollars, and crucially, most cross-border financial transactions flow through systems that the United States either controls or heavily influences, including the SWIFT interbank messaging network. That influence is not merely commercial. It is strategic. The ability to cut countries off from dollar-denominated transactions or to expel them from SWIFT has become one of the most powerful non-military tools in American foreign policy. Sanctions against Iran, Russia, North Korea, and Venezuela have all relied on this architecture. China's digital yuan project has been interpreted by many analysts as a long-term effort to construct an alternative. A currency that does not route through SWIFT, that does not depend on correspondent banks in New York, and that can settle transactions between governments and corporations without touching the dollar system at all. That ambition found concrete expression in Project M-Bridge, a cross-border payment platform developed jointly by the central banks of China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates, using multiple CBDCs on a shared ledger. The project demonstrated that large-value cross-border transactions could be settled in minutes rather than days, without passing through any Western financial infrastructure. The conflict, however, is not only between states. Within countries, the development of CBDCs has sparked a serious debate about the relationship between citizens and governments. A CBDC is, by design, programmable. That is partly presented as a feature. It enables more precise monetary policy, instantaneous government payments, and greater transparency over illicit financial flows. But programmability also creates capabilities that have no precedent in the history of money. A CBDC can be designed to expire, to be restricted to certain categories of spending, to be geographically limited, or to be frozen at the direction of a government authority, without the involvement of any court. In democratic societies, the prospect of a surveillance-capable, programmable national currency has generated significant civil liberties concern. In the United States, legislative debates over a potential digital dollar have included explicit provisions to prohibit the Federal Reserve from issuing a CBDC capable of tracking individual transactions. In the European Union, the proposed digital euro has been subject to extensive public consultation, focused specifically on privacy protections and the right to continue using physical cash as an alternative. In authoritarian contexts, the same capabilities raise more immediate concerns. China's digital yuan already operates within a surveillance ecosystem that has no equivalent in open societies, and the level of transaction visibility it provides to the state is, by design, comprehensive. The consequences of this transition are likely to unfold across several dimensions at once. For the world's unbanked and underbanked populations, estimated by the World Bank at around 1.4 billion adults, CBDCs offer a genuine opportunity. A digital currency stored on a basic mobile phone requires no bank account, no credit history, and no physical branch. In economies where mobile connectivity has outpaced traditional banking infrastructure, particularly across sub-Saharan Africa and parts of South Asia, this could represent a meaningful and rapid expansion of financial access. For the international monetary order, the consequences are less certain, but potentially far more profound. A successful cross-border CBDC system that bypasses dollar settlement would not immediately overturn American financial primacy. The depth and liquidity of dollar markets cannot be replicated overnight. But it would begin to erode the structural dependencies that underpin dollar dominance, particularly among countries that have political or economic reasons to seek alternatives to American-controlled infrastructure. For individual citizens, the stakes are immediate and personal. Money that is programmable is money that can be conditioned. Governments that currently rely on courts, warrants, and legal processes to restrict access to funds could find that a CBDC architecture shifts that power dramatically in their direction. The safeguards available to individuals would depend entirely on the laws written around the technology, and those laws vary enormously between governments. The debate around digital currencies is sometimes framed as a technical question about payments efficiency, or as an economic question about monetary policy transmission. It is both of those things. But it is also something considerably larger. Digital currencies are a fundamental redesign of the relationship between citizens and the institutions that issue and govern money. The architecture of a CBDC, who can see transactions, who can freeze them, what conditions can be placed on spending, and who has the authority to set those conditions, is ultimately a political architecture. It encodes certain values, either by deliberate design or by institutional default. What history consistently suggests is that financial infrastructure, once built, tends to be used for purposes beyond its original intent. SWIFT was designed for commercial efficiency. It became a tool of geopolitical coercion. The question for every CBDC now under development is not simply whether it works as a payment system, but who controls it, under what rules, subject to what oversight, and with what accountability to the people whose money it represents. The era of purely physical money is ending. That transition was already underway long before any government issued a digital currency. Credit cards, mobile payments, and online banking had already moved most transactions into the digital realm. What CBDCs represent is not a new direction, but an acceleration and a formalization of a path that was already being taken, now with the full institutional weight of the state behind it. The critical question is not whether digital currencies will reshape finance. They already are. The question is whether that reshaping will be governed by principles that protect individual rights, ensure meaningful financial privacy, and maintain the independence of money from moment-to-moment political pressure, or whether it will produce something more troubling, a form of currency that is technically sophisticated, operationally seamless, and fundamentally conditional on the approval of whoever holds the keys. Currency has always been a reflection of power. What is being built now may be the most precise instrument of financial power the world has ever seen. Whether that power ultimately serves the people who use the money or merely the institutions that issue it may be the defining financial question of the coming generation. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this content and want to see more, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel.